So let's come to our last lesson for this lecture with the topic of intercropping. Intercropping is the practice of combining several species together in the same field simultaneously. Potential benefits of intercropping are vast and include space and resource efficiency, potential increase of food production in this case, reduction of runoff and soil erosion, better yields via diversification, less risk from insects and increase in soil organic matter, earthworm populations, soil microbial activity, and nutrient cycling together with a better soil structure. According to the paper, The New Green Revolution, Sustainable Intensification of Agriculture by Intercropping, quote, from 126 studies that were retrieved from the scientific literature, 993 intercropping observations were considered. When comparing the same area of land that was managed in monoculture, intercrops produced 38% more gross energy, meant relative land output of 1.38, and 33% more gross incomes. Mean relative land output of 1.33. On average, whilst using 23% less land, irrigation and aridity index is in non-irrigated intercrops did not affect land equivalent ratio, thereby indicating that intercropping remains beneficial both under stressful and non-stressful contexts concerning moisture availability. Additional benefits of intercropping systems. By increasing the number of living plants in the soil at any given time through intercropping, we also ensure that the time and intensity of soil coverage is increased. The increased diversity inherent in intercropping systems often leads to different root zones being activated. This in turn helps to increase soil structure as taproots form, for example. To take the example of lupine, help break up compacted layers, while a shallow rooted wheat, for example, a wheat crop, provides hold of the shallow roots soil zone. In many studies, intercropping has shown to have positive effect on crop health and pest management. As the article Intercropping for the Management of Pests and Diseases puts it, quote, the presence of associated plants in the intercrop can lead to attack escape in 3 ways, all involving lower population growth rate of the attacking organism. In 1, the associates cause plants of the attacked component to be less good to hosts. In the 2nd, they interfere directly with activities of the attacker. And in the 3rd, they change the environment in the intercrop so that the natural enemies of the attacker are being favored, unquote. The final point is particularly relevant for Europe, where currently 30 million tons of soybean meal equivalent used for animal feed are annually imported. The potential of increasing local soy or similar protein-rich crop substitutes through intercropping, for example, with legumes, is therefore immense and could be a key for increasing Europe's overall self-sufficiency. Challenges and considerations of intercropping systems. Clearly, there are many potential benefits to intercropping, but the practice does not come without unique considerations that need to be taken into account, such as maturity of crops, time of planting, plant density, plant selection, and the compatibility of those crops. Maturity of crop time and planting considers, similarly to living mulch systems, when growing multiple crops simultaneously, it is important to time it such that the peak growth periods, with the exception of crops meant to be harvested together, do not impede each other. By staggering the different times of crop maturity, the demands on space, light, water, and nutrients are also staggered. The goal is to loosen up the peak periods where component crops make maximum demands on growth resources. Plant density. Finding the ideal plant density plays a large role in success of intercropping yields. The individual plant density of each species needs to be lower than the one as a monocrop culture to avoid too much competition but it should be dense enough to increase land use efficiency. With corn or maize, one of the most relevant crops worldwide and the most common intercrop component internationally, a density of 50,000 plants per hectare has been tested as having the lowest competitive pressure. At this density, the highest land equivalent ratio, in short LER, values are being reached of 1.83 and 1.86 respectively. According to research, in assessing efficiency of an intercropping system, some competition functions are considered, of which land equivalent ratio, LER, is a very common index used to measure productivity of intercropping systems. Wiley and Osiru proposed the concept of the LER, and it is defined as the proportionate land required under pure stand of crop to produce the same productivity as obtained in the intercropping system at the same management level. Actually, LER is the summation of ratios of the yield of each crop species involved in intercropping systems to its corresponding pure stand yield. Experiments carried out in different countries clearly exhibit higher LER values in maize legume intercropping systems. The next point is plant selection and the compatibility of crops. Because not all plants make for good intercropping partners, factors such as root and leaf systems, shading, nutrient and water needs should be taken into account. Plant competition can be minimized by finding the right planting pattern and planting distance. The goal is to find crops that, when planted together, make better overall use of natural resources such as nutrients, light and water. Intercropping between high and low canopy crops is a common practice in tropical agriculture, leading to improved light interception and yields. This often requires the shorter crops to be planted between sufficiently wider rows of the taller plants. On Schloss Tempelhof farm, we intercrop, for example, lentils with oats. The lentils are used for human consumption, and the oats are being sprouted to feed our laying hens. To grow lentils together with oats has the advantage of highly reducing the risk of lodging. Lodging describes the bending over of stems near ground level of crops, causing big challenges of the harvest process, in most cases leading to reductions in yield. Reduced harvest quality due to moisture, pre-harvest sprouting and infection with fungi are common problems when lodging has occurred. Different grains, soils and climates need different mixing ratios of those two components. The locally working ratio in our context is between 1 and 3 parts lentils to 1 part oats. This ratio leads to the highest LER ratio according to the study we will take a look at below. Cultivation and harvest for this intercrop combination does not differ from the monocrop of the individual component. Depending on how the harvest is planned to be used, you have to consider how to clean separate the different crops. In our case, a local grain processing company offers the service of finely separating lentils from oats to be able to use the lentils for human consumption. According to the paper Optimizing Lentil-Based Mixed Cropping with Different Companion Crops and Plant Densities in Terms of Crop Yield and Weed Control, quote, high lentil yields were achieved in the mixtures lentil oats 3:1 and lentil oats 1:1. Compared with pure stands, land use efficiency was up to 20% higher in lentil pea mixtures and up to 33% higher in lentil oat mixtures, unquote. Other common field crop examples for intercropping in our temperate climate are, for example, oats and grain peas, oats and fava beans or oats and blue lupins, triticale and field peas or triticale and fava beans, for example. But there's also many other intercropping combinations where experiments are being run and where farmers have success with in our temperate climates, which are barley with grain peas, barley with lentils or wheat with lentils, oats and soybeans as a combination or oats and common veg, oilseed rape and grain peas, and corn and runner beans, for example, and there's many more. To summarize this lesson, Intercropping clearly offers a great opportunity for increasing resource efficiency and improving soil structure, while simultaneously intensifying output of existing agricultural lands. This is true both for high and low input agriculture. In order for these benefits to take hold, there are a number of considerations that need to be taken into account when planning a successful intercropping system. The main consideration being maturity of crops, time of planting, plant density and plant selection, and last, the compatibility of the crops. We are almost at the end of this lesson, therefore I would like to give you a final conclusion. In this lecture, we have covered some of the main tools and techniques that help increase soil life and build up soil carbon with an economically viable system. As I hope was become clear, is that there are many individual tools that when used together create a regenerative system for agricultural production. Regenerative, in contrast to conventional agriculture, is based on finding solutions that come from site-specific observation and on-site experience. There's no set recipe for exactly how each tool should be implemented, but rather a toolbox from which individual tools can be drawn depending on what fits into the living system and context at a given time. The tools and techniques described on their own aren't the all-cure solution to the world's soil crisis. Rather, they are essential practices that help us move towards a regenerative agricultural model. The practice of cover cropping, minimum tillage, surface composting, living mulch systems and intercropping all take into account the importance of soil health. Rather than being viewed and treated as a dead growing medium, regenerative agriculture recognizes soil as a living soil food network, whose health is inseparable from that of the environment and us humans. As we are concluding this lecture, it is important to note that we did not have time to cover all the relevant field crop techniques and methods for agricultural production. Further practices with regenerative potential where information is provided in the additional reading section include transitioning from annual to perennial grains, which could help revolutionize large-scale agriculture, breeding grain populations made of a diversity of varieties, which could be a path to more resilient and climate-adaptable crop stands, the use of biochar, animal integration, which is covered in Lecture 5, Lesson 3, mob grazing, crop rotations, and the balanced soil chemistry fertilization using the Albrecht-Kinsey system. Thank you for attending this lecture.